Yo, what's up, guys? Back where we left off, we were talking about action creators. Now we want to create our reducer. Now let's create the file. So a reducer is just a function. So we just call it reducer, but all it really is, it's a function that has two parameters. And the first one is state, initial state, and the second one is our action object. So let's do this here. We're going to start off by importing our action types. So I use this syntax to pull in everything from this file. We're going to call them actions from action types. So these are all our action types. This is where we'll be throwing into the reducer function. So now we need our initial state. So that'll just be an object with key values. So we're going to call this. So this is where we're going to store our value, that number that we increment by clicking the button. So let's call this so this is our initial state. This is where we're going to pass in as the to our first parameter, our state. So let's create this reducer function. So the two parameters, state, and we're going to have this equal to our initial state above and our action. So this is just our action object with our type and payload. So here we are going to use a switch statement. This is just to say in case we have this action type, we want to change the state to this. So in case we have, let's pull in actions dot, remember the name of it, mind diamond. So in case our action is mine diamond, we want to return our updated state. Now, we don't want to mutate the state. We want it to be immutable. So in order to do that, we're going to use the spread operator, the spread in state. This creates a copy of our state. So we are not changing the state directly, not mutating it. Then here, I'm going to take diamonds. And this will be action dot payload. Oh, I forgot. Colon. So our diamonds, right now they're 0. But once we pass this into our onClick function, now I'm doing this as a very overkill way for something so small. Because if I could, instead of doing this, we could simply take diamonds and do +1. Put this, when we pass this into our onClick function, there's nothing to pass. There's no data payload to pass. So every time I on click, this is where it keeps incrementing. But instead, I want to do it this way. So since this is our only action type, we'll just stop it there and we'll create a default return state. So this is in case of there is no action creator, no action type, we're just going to return the original state. And also, if you aren't familiar with this syntax, the spread operator is basically just spreading in state. It's taking our initial state and it's spreading that using this syntax with the three dots. So our state right here, which is initial state, we're passing it in. So if we actually add more properties to our initial state, it'll just throw that in here. Now, what I want to do is, and now how do we connect our reducer to our store? So in our root reducer, before we do that, I want to talk about our root reducer. Now, once you have a really big application, when your project starts getting bigger, more complex, you're going to have multiple reducers. That reducer just handles that type of task. So say we had another reducer getting some asynchronous data. So we would have to go and fetch all this data, say from an API. Then we would create a different reducer for that, and say we'll have multiple reducers doing different things. So in order for our store to get access to our reducers, it has to be into one reducer. So Redux gives us this helper function called combine reducers. So here we're going to import all our separate reducers. So we only have one. So let's import diamond. So this is what we'll be passing into our store. A combine reducers. So combine reducers, all it takes is an object that has the properties of the reducers. So we're going to call this diamond. So once we have that, this is where our store is. This is where we're going to pass our combine reducers into our store. So our store now has that state, has access. So to set this up, all we need is create store from Redux. So once we have create store, we are going to create our store variable. Also, we need to import our combine reducers. Now our store is going to equal create store. Now create store is going to take in our reducers. It's the first argument. We're going to export this. So once we export this, it'll show that, so create store, it has two other optional arguments, but for the scope of this project, all we would need is combine reducers. Now, after this, we're going to show our data in our Minecraft component and update that data. And I'll do all that in the next video. See ya.